Subscribe to the channel and also press the bell icon to never miss an update from Endeavour Careers. Hello and welcome to Endeavour's GK Capsule for the month of September 2022. In this edition, we will discuss Russia's recent setbacks in its war with Ukraine, the launch of the long-awaited national logistics policy by the Indian government, the havoc wreaked by tropical cyclones Fiona, Nanmadol, and Ian, retirement of tennis legends Roger Federer and Serena Williams, amongst other things. The first category is awards and recognition. Britain's Indian origin Home Secretary Suella Braverman has been named winner of the first ever Queen Elizabeth II Woman of the Year award at a ceremony in London. The 42-year-old barrister was appointed to the cabinet earlier last month by British Prime Minister Liz Truss. The awards, now in their 20th year, recognize the achievements of individuals from across Britain's South Asian community via public nominations. Shrishti Bakshi, a women's rights activist from India, was honored with the Changemaker Award at the UN SDG Action Awards. The activist has traveled 3,800 kilometers around the country in less than a year to raise awareness on gender-based violence and inequality. She was awarded for confronting gender-based violence and advocating for safe access to public spaces. The UN SDG Action Awards ceremony celebrates people and initiatives that mobilize, inspire, and connect people every day, proving that each one of us has the power to drive transformative action. Prominent Indian scientist and industrialist Dr. Swati Piramal has been conferred France's top civilian honor for her contributions in the fields of business and industry, science, medicine, and towards strengthening Indo-French ties. Piramal, 66, is the vice chairperson of the Mumbai-headquartered Piramal Group, a business conglomerate with interests in pharmaceuticals, financial services, real estate, and glass packaging. Created in 1802 by Napoleon Bonaparte, the Legion of Honor is the highest civilian award given by the French Republic for outstanding service to France, regardless of nationality. Piramal is also a recipient of the Padma Shri, one of the highest civilian honors of India, as a champion of developing frameworks and policies to support women in leadership roles. Our next section is Persons in News. Mikhail Gorbachev, the former Soviet leader who brought the Cold War to a peaceful end, died at the age of 91. Mr. Gorbachev took power in 1985 and introduced reforms as well as opening up the Soviet Union to the world. But he was unable to prevent the slow collapse of the Union. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1990 for the leading role he played in the radical changes in East-West relations. Liz Truss won the race to succeed Boris Johnson as UK Prime Minister, confronting the enormous task ahead of her amid increasing pressure to curb soaring prices, ease labour unrest, and fix a healthcare system burdened by long waiting lists and staff shortages. The Foreign Secretary, 47, emerged victorious after a 2-month Conservative Party leadership contest that started with 11 candidates and concluded with a runoff against former Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rishi Sunak. Queen Elizabeth II, the longest-serving monarch in British history, died at the age of 96, drawing to a close the country's second Elizabethan era and heralding the reign of her son, King Charles III. The monarch died peacefully at Balmoral 2 days after undertaking her final public constitutional duty with the appointment of Liz Truss, 15th Prime Minister of her 70-year reign. Her death means Charles now becomes the king and the Duchess of Cornwall the Queen Consort. As Queen of the UK and 14 other realms and head of the 54 nation Commonwealth, Elizabeth II was easily the world's most recognizable head of state during an extraordinarily long reign. Cyrus Mistry, the former chairman of Tata Sons, died in a road accident on a highway near Mumbai. The Irish Indian businessman made headlines in 2011 when he was announced as Tata's chosen successor and became the first person not directly related to the Tata family to head the company bearing their name. In 2016, Mistry was replaced in a sudden corporate shakeup that led former chairman Ratan Tata to come out of retirement to lead the firm on a temporary basis. Mistry's ouster created a bitter public feud between the former chairman and the group's board. Moving on to our next section, places in news. On the occasion of World Tourism Day, Uttarakhand received the first prize in two categories for the Best Adventure Tourism Destination and All-Round Development of Tourism from the Ministry of Tourism. Uttarakhand's Bakri Chhap was awarded for the most innovative tourism project. The leaders of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization endorsed the holy city of Varanasi as the first ever tourist and cultural capital of the grouping for the year 2022-23. This would promote tourism, cultural and humanitarian exchanges between India and other SCO member states. Varanasi in Uttar Pradesh dates back to the 11th century BC and is considered to be the spiritual capital of India. It hosts some 2,000 temples, including Kashi Vishwanath. The world's largest museum on Harappan culture is currently being set up in Rakhigari, Haryana. The museum would showcase some 5,000-year-old artifacts belonging to the Indus Valley civilization and would display photographs depicting Rakhigari's history. The museum would give recognition to Rakhigari at the international and national levels and increase job opportunities for the local communities. The Uttar Pradesh cabinet has approved the notification of the state's fourth tiger reserve in the Ranipur Wildlife Sanctuary in Chitrakoot district. RWS is an important corridor for the movement of tigers, according to the Status of Tigers, Co-Predators and Prey in India report by the National Tiger Conservation Authority. This is the fourth tiger reserve in the state after Dudhwa, Pilibhit and Amangarh, which is the buffer of Corbett Tiger Reserve. India currently has 53 tiger reserves. They are governed by Project Tiger, which comes under the jurisdiction of the National Tiger Conservation Authority. The airport at Mohali will be officially renamed as Shahid Bhagat Singh International Airport, Chandigarh, as a tribute to the freedom fighter on his 115th birth anniversary. The renaming ended a 7-year deadlock due to the demand to add Mohali, Chandigarh and Panchkula to the name of the airport. Prime Minister Narendra Modi celebrated his 72nd birthday last month by releasing 8 Namibian cheetahs into the wild in central India under the campaign Project Cheetah. The cheetahs were brought from Namibia to India in a special cargo flight, Boeing 747, after which they were taken to Kuno National Park in a helicopter. In July 2020, India and the Republic of Namibia signed a MOU with the Namibian government agreeing to donate the 8 felines to launch the program. This is the first time that a wild southern African cheetah will be introduced in India or anywhere in the world. It marks the cheetah's reintroduction in India 7 decades after the species was declared extinct in the country in 1952. Moving on to the major highlights in the category of national news. India is set to join 3 of the 4 pillars of the Indo-Pacific framework at the first in-person ministerial summit in Los Angeles, signaling its political and strategic commitment to the world's newest economic architecture in the Indo-Pacific and in keeping with its national priorities. India believes that participating in the pillars will help give it a seat at the global rule-making high table as newer economic arrangements are designed and will boost its own engagement with other Indo-Pacific economies. India stayed out of the joint declaration on the trade pillar, citing concerns over possible discrimination against developing economies. India was the only one of the 14 IPEF countries, which include Southeast Asian countries, Australia, New Zealand, South Korea, and Japan, not to join the Declaration of Trade. On 17 September, the Government of India launched the long-awaited National Logistics Policy, which aims to streamline shipping and lower costs throughout the country. The policy introduces an integrated digital system that will bring on one platform departments belonging to ministries of road transport, railways, customs, aviation, foreign trade, and commerce. All these departments have their own digital data, which will be integrated under IDS. The policy will facilitate unified policy and regulatory economy for end-to-end logistics services and an overarching institutional framework that will govern the logistics sector and enhance its competitiveness. The center imposed an export duty of 20% on rice, brown rice, and semi milled as well as wholly milled rice, except for parboiled rice, to boost domestic supplies, effective September 9th. The development comes in the wake of concerns about lower paddy sowing by farmers this Kharif season amid uneven monsoons in parts of the country that have exacerbated inflationary expectations and nudged up retail prices for rice in recent weeks. India, the world's second largest rice producer after China, commands a 40% share in the global trade. The country exported non-basmati rice to more than 150 countries in 2021-22. India and China on September 13th confirmed the disengagement of their troops from a fifth friction point in eastern Ladakh along the LAC. With the latest withdrawal of troops from patrolling point 15 in the Gogra Hot Springs area, buffer zones have now been established by the two sides in 5 locations, including in Galwan Valley, north and south of Pangong Lake, and at PP-17A in Gogra. The arrangements in the 4 earlier established buffer zones have so far helped keep the peace over the past 2 years. No patrolling is to be undertaken by either side in the buffer zones, which have been established on territory claimed by both India and China. Next, we have major highlights in the category of international news. Russia invaded Ukraine 7 months ago, largely focusing its military operations in the south, east, and northeast of Ukraine, seizing large areas. However, things changed dramatically at the start of September. In a decisive offensive in the northeast, Ukraine drove back Russian forces. It claims to have regained 3,000 square kilometers of territory around the city of Kharkiv alone. Its forces have also retaken territory in Luhansk, in eastern Ukraine. Since July, the region had been entirely occupied by Russia. In total, Ukraine says it has retaken more than 8,000 square kilometers from Russian control in September, its most significant territorial gains since the war started. The Institute for the Study of War says Ukrainian troops have inflicted a major operational defeat on Russian forces. Russia confirmed that its forces retreated from Izium and Kupiansk. It said this was a strategic withdrawal to regroup. It has also said that it will continue to target these areas with military strikes. Russia still holds about 20% of Ukraine, according to the ISW. The areas are largely in the eastern Donbas region and in the south of mainland Ukraine, as well as the Crimea Peninsula, which Russia annexed in 2014. Members of the G7 agreed to impose a price cap on Russian oil in a bid to hit Moscow's ability to finance the war in Ukraine. Finance ministers said the cap on crude oil and petroleum products would also help reduce global energy prices. Russia said it would stop selling oil to countries that imposed price caps. At their virtual meeting, The finance minister said the oil price cap plan was specifically designed to reduce Russian revenues and its ability to fund its war of aggression. They also said they wanted to minimize the damaging economic fallout of the conflict, especially on low and middle income countries. In other news, the US has agreed to sell $1.1 billion in weaponry to Taiwan, provoking anger from China. The proposed deal includes a radar system to track incoming strikes and anti ship and anti air missiles. It comes after US House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi last month became the most senior US official in 25 years to visit Taipei. The Chinese embassy in Washington called on the US to revoke the deal or face countermeasures. Beijing sees the self ruled island as a part of its territory and insists it should be unified with the mainland by force if necessary. It launched large scale military drills around Taiwan last month following the American delegation's visit. Tropical cyclones Fiona, Nanmadol, and Ian wreaked havoc in different parts of the world last month. Hurricane Fiona, which caused deadly flooding in the Caribbean, was the strongest storm on record to hit Canada. Typhoon Nanmadol prompted the evacuation of 9 million people in Japan. Hurricane Ian slammed into Cuba on 27 September as a Category 3 storm, with sustained winds of 205 kilometers per hour and even stronger gusts, leading to flash flooding and mudslides. It is estimated that more than 3 million people have been affected, the UN Resident Coordinator's Office informed. The World Meteorological Organization has reminded that climate change is expected to increase the proportion of major tropical cyclones worldwide and to increase heavy rainfall associated with these events. Meanwhile, sea level rise and coastal development are also worsening the impact of coastal flooding. The next category is news from the fields of business, economy, and industrial sectors. India has overtaken the UK to become the world's fifth largest economy and is now behind only the US, China, Japan, and Germany, according to IMF projections. With India being the world's fastest growing major economy, its lead over the UK will widen in the next few years. India's GDP expanded 13.5% in the April to June quarter, the quickest pace in a year to retain the world's fastest growing economy tag, but rising interest costs and the looming threat of a recession in major world economies could slow the momentum in the coming quarters. The Federal Reserve approved its third consecutive interest rate rise of 0.75 percentage point and signaled additional large increases were likely even though they are raising the risk of recession. Fed officials voted unanimously to lift their benchmark federal funds rate to a range between 3% and 3.25%, a level last seen in early 2008. Nearly all of them expect to raise rates to between 4% and 4.5% by the end of this year, according to new projections released, which would call for sizable rate increases at policy meetings in November and December. The World Bank, in its new report, has warned that the world could face a recession next year amid simultaneous tightening of monetary policy by central banks around the world. The global economy is now in its steepest slowdown following a post-recession recovery since 1970, it stated. From the US to Europe and India, countries are aggressively raising lending rates, which aim to curb the supply of cheap money and thereby help bring down inflation, which is likely to dampen investment, result in job cuts, and suppress growth. The massive overhaul of Ethereum, known as the merge, has finally happened, moving the digital machinery at the core of the second largest cryptocurrency by market value to a vastly more energy efficient system after years of development and delay. Ethereum's developers say the upgrade will make the network, which houses a $60 billion ecosystem of cryptocurrency exchanges, lending companies, non fungible token marketplaces, and other apps, more secure and scalable too. The merge retires Ethereum's proof of work system, where crypto miners competed to write transactions to its ledger and earn rewards for doing so by solving cryptographic puzzles. Union Minister Piyush Goyal last month launched program SETU, or Supporting Entrepreneurs in Transformation and Upskilling, in the Bay Area of San Francisco. The initiative would connect startups in India to US based investors and startup ecosystem leaders with mentorship and assistance in various areas, including funding, market access, and commercialization. Vedanta Limited and Taiwan's Foxconn signed an agreement last month with India's Gujarat to set up a $20 billion semiconductor project. The joint venture obtained subsidies including on capital expenditure and electricity from Gujarat. They plan to build a chip and display facilities near the western state's largest city, Ahmedabad. Gujarat Chief Minister Bhupendra Bhai Patel said the venture would create more than 1 lakh jobs and the state was prepared to extend any support to the project, which it won in a close race with India's richest state, Maharashtra. Vedanta is the third company to announce a chip plant location in India after international consortium ISMC and Singapore based IGSS Ventures, which are setting up in the southern states Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, respectively. In other news, the government has amended the foreign trade policy to allow international trade invoicing, payment, and settlement in the Indian rupee, activating the mechanism announced by the Reserve Bank of India to facilitate trade in the domestic currency. The Directorate General of Foreign Trade under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry notified the changes to the policy. The central bank allowed authorized banks in India to open special rupee Vostro accounts of correspondent banks of any partner trading country to facilitate trade in the Indian currency. The Reserve Bank of India is ready to bring its card on file tokenization norms into effect from 1st October after various complaints were filed regarding the misuse of debit or credit cards. Tokenization means the details of your cards, such as 16-digit number, names, expiry dates, and codes, which you used to save earlier for the future payments, will now be replaced by a token. The token is used by the merchant's website for the transaction. The RBI is implementing these norms of tokenization in order to secure the card details of the customers. Currently, the bank card details are saved by a merchant during a transaction. If the merchant's website is hacked, the details of the customers will be exposed. Post-implementation of these norms, all the customers' data will be with the bank and not with the merchant website. Moving on to our next category, meetings and summits. India and Bangladesh last month signed 7 agreements for cooperation in areas ranging from sharing of river waters to space and unveiled new connectivity and energy initiatives as leaders of the two sides held up the bilateral partnership as a role model for the neighborhood. Following talks with his visiting Bangladesh counterpart Sheikh Hasina, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said both leaders had stressed on cooperation against terrorism and fundamentalism. India will host the G20 Leaders Summit in New Delhi on 9th and 10th September in 2023 under its presidency, the Ministry of External Affairs has announced. India will assume the presidency of the G20 for 1 year from 1st December 2022 to 30th November 2023 and is expected to host over 200 meetings across the country beginning in December this year. India, as G20 presidency, will be inviting Bangladesh, Egypt, Mauritius, Netherlands, Nigeria, Oman, Singapore, Spain, and UAE as guest countries, said the MEA. Moving on to our next category, science and technology, the Korea Superconducting Tokamak Advanced Research KSTAR, a nuclear fusion reactor developed by researchers at the Seoul National University in South Korea, has attained temperatures over 100 million degrees Celsius in a reaction that lasted for about 30 seconds. The development not only sets a new world record but also brings the world closer to the realization and use of nuclear fusion energy. The findings are striking because although scientists have managed to reach temperature levels before, this is the longest they have been able to sustain it. This suggests the possibility of unlimited clean energy. In other news, in a first of its kind initiative, the Department of Science and Technology has announced the setting up of India's first dark sky reserve in Hanle, Ladakh in the next 3 months. Hanle, which is about 4,500 meters above sea level, hosts telescopes and is regarded as one of the world's most optimal sites for astronomical observations. A dark sky reserve is a designation given to a place that has policies in place to ensure that a tract of land or region has minimal artificial light interference. Moving on to our next category of sports, tennis legend Roger Federer retired from professional tennis at the age of 41 after a series of knee operations, closing a career in which he won 20 Grand Slam titles, finished 5 seasons ranked number 1, and helped create a golden era of men's tennis with rivals Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic. Federer said he intends to keep playing tennis, but just not in a Grand Slams or on the tour. Serena Williams, yet another tennis legend, too bowed out of US Open 2022 in what could be her last match on a court. She lost to Ajla Tomljanovic in round 3 of women's singles. The tennis star had announced that this will be her last singles outing in the US Open and that she is retiring from the sport. Serena retires after having won 92 matches in Australian Open, 69 in French Open, 98 at the prestigious Wimbledon, and 108 wins at her home Grand Slam US Open. She has won a record total of 23 Grand Slam titles. World number 1 Iga Swiatek defeated Tunisia's Ons Jabeur to win her second Grand Slam title of the year with a straight sets victory in the US Open final. The victory followed Swiatek's win at the French Open in June, making the 21-year-old the first woman since 2016 to win 2 Grand Slams in a single season. Swiatek's 10th career title also extended her remarkable record in tournament finals. She has now won her last 10 finals without dropping a set. Indian wrestling icon Bajrang Punia bagged the bronze medal at the World Wrestling Championships 2022 in Serbia. Punia got the better of the Puerto Rico wrestler Sebastian Rivera as the Indian battled back from a position of disadvantage to come out on top as he sealed an 11-9 victory in the bronze medal bout. With Punia's triumph, India has picked up 2 medals in the ongoing edition of the World Championships as he joins Vinesh Fogart, who also picked up a bronze medal in the 53 kg category. With this, we have come to an end of this month's edition of GK Capsule. We hope you like the coverage of topics in our monthly edition. Also watch our other online videos. Happy learning. Thank you.